Hi everyone, Susanna Harris here.
And Alex Martin.
So Alex is visiting me this weekend from Savannah, Georgia. I'm up in Chapel Hill, and Alex, how long was the drive?
Well, I went through Charleston, so it put the drive at just over 6 hours, but normally it'd be about 4.5.
That's not too bad. I've never been, have I been to Georgia? I have never been to Georgia. I've been to the Georgia airport.
That's Georgia airport, yeah.
That's the best place to go? But you're not originally from there.
No, I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That's where I went to college. I kind of just identify as myself being from there, even though I'm from York, Pennsylvania. So sort of north of Baltimore, if anyone's aware of that area. But yeah, no, Pittsburgh is like where I went to college. Kind of just, I loved that city so much, and kind of got invited to come live in Savannah for a while. Moved down there 50 weeks ago yesterday, so right in the middle of Hurricane Irma. So now I'm here.
We got the whole southern treatment. So we're on the SciCommunity Live right now because we want to be able to answer some of your questions about what is science communication, what does it mean to do SciComm, and the reason that Alex and I are talking about it is that we both kind of have different approaches, we have different backgrounds, and I want to learn more about what he's doing, and he wants the same thing.
Do I?
In my head, you do. So if you have questions for either of us, please feel free to put those in the comments, and yeah, send them on our way, and we'd love to have some discussion with all of you of if you think this is science communication, if you think social media is a waste of time, if everyone should be a science communicator.
Should we be doing science communication differently? Like, are we taking the wrong approach for the time being, kind of thing?
Yeah.
So.
All right, well, Alex, would you just tell me a little bit about how you got into science communication?
So, I'm a science fiction author, and I've been writing for 14 years, and it's kind of just led up to me putting educational plot points and world building techniques and stuff like that, all educational, into making people want to go out and research more about astronomy, physics, math, chemistry, just get you interested, kind of like a little gateway into science. And through that, I kind of was growing more and more interested in science because I loved it as a kid, kind of fell out of it in college, and then these books kind of brought me back to it. So now it's like my full-blown mission is to really be able to engage people with science and give them several different avenues to see science and its applications and just what they can do and what it actually is.
And would you explain your shirt?
Oh yeah, so my shirt. So Experience Daliona is from my books. It's the second book is where you see it, and it's a science organization on the planet Daliona, and it's all about like ecotourism, science engagement / communication, and like tech kind of stuff. So I kind of brought that out into the real world. It's like my platform now.
Yeah, and actually I just realized we have some like product placement very sneakily hidden. Behind my Totoro cards, you can see one of Alex's books. So I bought Alex's book a month or two ago, and he signed it for me, and it was really great. So if you want to look into any of his writing, anything like that, you can go ahead and find him. What is your handle?
So I'm the Scalix of Science with periods in between of on either side of, but I mean, if you look up Experience Daliona, you'll find me on anything. So
Find him everywhere. This is true. That's good brand marketing. Yeah, so that's super cool. It sounds like you just do SciComm because you really like science.
Really like science, and I myself. Some people have said that I should consider myself a scientist. I don't, in the sense that I'm not actively practicing it. Yes, there are some cool experiments that I like to do that either I've like just seen on my own and followed through with them. Really, my whole mission is to get people connected to science and doing it on their own, show them that this is something that they can engage with in their own world, in their everyday lives, somewhere. So just show them the cues to look for, like, hey, if you see a shadow at this time of day, do this, and then you can make something cool happen. Or like with diffraction glasses, kids love the diffraction glasses. So yeah,
Ooh.
you saw those yesterday.
I did. I'm super excited because while Alex is up here, we're going to do some of his Sidewalk Science Center, which we can talk about here in a second. Did I say it right? I said it right.
You got it right.
First time ever. And
one counted most.
I love the idea that different branches of science are called fields of study. Most people think of science as a closed black box, and in fact, it is an open field, and we are all explorers. The people that made these discoveries just thought a little bit harder about what they were looking at, and they were a little bit more curious. And their curiosity changed the way people thought about the world, and thus it changed the world. They changed the world, and so can you.
I'm gonna get to experience a bunch of Alex's really cool outreach activities, things that, I mean, if you watch his videos, you can see that people are actually coming up to you and they're really excited.
Yeah.
And it's fun.
So I'll kind of explain how I got into doing Sidewalk Science Center.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I love, if anyone knows Veritasium or the Physics Girl on YouTube, like those were the two main influences for me. And Veritasium, a lot of his early videos were him going out into public and talking to people on the street about different science topics. And that to me was just such a cool way of approaching science communication. And I followed him for years. Even when I had kind of fallen out of science in college, his videos were still things that I would watch on a regular basis. And then, I mean, he's kind of disappeared on YouTube. He puts out a video here and there, but he's getting more into TV networks and stuff now. So he's kind of vanished from that scene, and even Diana Cowan has kind of, she still makes videos, but she's more on the social media and doing like cons and stuff. So I kind of saw this kind of gap there where no one is really engaging with people on the street anymore. In that sort of way that Veritasium was doing it, Derek was doing it in his early days. So now it's like I set people up in front of a camera and just give them a couple questions, kind of guide them through some concepts, like why does the sun rise and set at a different time every single day? Why are there 7 days in a week? How do trees grow? Like what gives them mass, basically, which is actually a really cool video that Veritasium did way back when. But cool. So I started doing that back in April, and it kind of led me through the early summer. Then I went to a conference in Finland, and then I came back, and I had some like science demonstrations that I like had at my other job because I work at a children's museum. So I was like, what if I start incorporating these into like the experience of making these videos with people? And so I started testing that out, and within a week, I mean, people were preferring to do the demonstrations over standing there for a video. So I just kind of stopped making videos, and then I got a permit to like do a performance thing in Savannah. And now I literally set up a table on the sidewalk. I have about 8 different demonstrations that I do. People come up, I'll be like, hey, do you want to do some science demonstrations and experiments? And they'll come over. Usually it's families. I do sometimes have just adults, teenagers, college students, whoever. And then they can go through all these experiments, test out different topics and concepts.
So that's pretty cool though that you're doing all of this with real people. This is just people who are walking through the park, not people who are coming to a science center, not people who are even really that interested, who are maybe people who might not think they're interested in science, and then you're getting them to do the activities and they're engaged.
Yeah. So Savannah doesn't have a science center. It closed down 20 years ago in 1999, that distant year. And it's so weird to think about.
It's weird, 20 years ago.
This gap has been here. And where I work, we incorporate science programs into my job. I work with kids every single day. But it's not a fully fledged science center, science program kind of thing. So like I'm just trying to build the interest, gauge the interest in downtown. I've actually engaged with, directly participated with over 1,000 people in the 2 months I've been doing it, almost 2 months I've been doing it, with the table.
Do you get repeat people, or is it like pretty much new?
A lot of locals will walk by. Some of them have done it. A lot of them will just stop and talk if they've already done it. But I do try to incorporate something new every week, and then they'll be like, oh, what's this? So keeping that fresh approach on it.
Yeah.
And my most recent one is the ping pong ball thing that I'll show you later.
I'm so excited. Yeah. So if you're in Chapel Hill today, we're going to go try this out where I live, which is fun. My favorite place in the world is science centers. I could go to a science center anytime and just have a blast. One of my favorites is in Singapore, which is a little bit far away, but the Boston Science Center is amazing. Even the science center I grew up in Des Moines, like, it's so fun.
I almost worked there. I had a couple interviews in Des Moines. Yeah.
Oh, they're in the U.S. Yeah, so we can definitely see all of your comments. Thank you for saying nice things. We got one that was like, you guys are why I'm interested, so that was really sweet. Yeah, I think that's a good point of like this personal engagement style being really important. So you kind of got into it organically, it seems like. It just made sense for you to start doing this and to do kind of it is a little bit performative.
A little bit. It's also, I'm the only person in Savannah actively doing this kind of a thing. Like, you have people who take palm tree fronds and they make roses out of it, and you have a bunch of those. You have a bunch of artists, you have a bunch of people on violins. But this is something that the public can do themselves. And you're not watching someone do art or something. Like, you're the one engaging in the activity, which is pretty unique in itself. It's a different experience than most people have if you're just walking down through the park. It's like, here, have this palm frond flower. Like, here, check out my art, or something. Like, you're the one doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I see it as parents can walk by and get some free entertainment. The kids absolutely love it.
Love it. I mean,
it seems like adults love it too, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's probably like a 70-30 split on who engages with it the most, but a lot of parents do love letting their kids do it, and I actually just wrote another article for a newspaper on what I've seen about the parents who don't let their kids do it.
Well, I think that's super interesting, because there are, I do know people who don't really see the point in science centers, and so I think having a science center in Savannah would be an amazing thing. I would love to come visit that whenever that happens, but in the meantime, I think that it's actually really cool that you can talk to people who wouldn't normally come to a science center. So, oh yeah, I love Savannah too. I have never been to Savannah, so I think I need to go. My background's a little bit different. I am definitely technically a scientist, and I do want to talk about that part too, because that's really interesting. It's sort of a contested thing right now, is like, what is a scientist, or who can do science? So I firmly believe that everyone can do science, and you do it all the time when you're cooking and you're like, I wonder if this would taste better with some salt, and you add some salt and you decide if it tastes better. That's kind of science. You have an idea, you have a hypothesis, you test that hypothesis, and you draw a conclusion. So anyone can do science, and I think that a lot more people should be considered scientists. So because science and math and art all kind of mix together, so I don't think there's clear boundaries. But if we go back to this idea of cooking, anyone can cook, and anyone can say I'm a cook, but not everyone should say that they're a chef. Not everyone should be like, I'm a professional chef, because that means something. And so I feel the same with scientists, that we have to figure out some sort of way to talk about it that makes it clear who is doing the primary research. So I work in a lab, and I do my own research on plants and bacteria. And so I'm a scientist and a researcher in that way. The question is, when I leave that job and I go on to something else, if I'm no longer doing research, am I considered a scientist? And I'm not really sure yet.
Because since you're practicing it so much right now, it's like, obviously you are. And we have our expertise in different things, but like, yeah, when you leave that field, like, what do you keep those qualifications? Can you still consider yourself that? I would personally say yes, like, especially if you've been working with it for so long, and you do have that knowledge.
Yeah, I think what I'll probably end up saying is something like I'm trained as a scientist, or I'm a trained scientist, meaning that it's a little bit more in the past. But all of these are really good questions. So it's pretty similar to the definition of musician or writer, I think. Yeah, absolutely. Everyone writes, but like Alex is a published author. I am not. I'm like, did I write? I mean, not really, blog posts and stuff like that, but not like an awesome book series. Sorry, I'll stop like fangirling. So I don't know. I can't imagine the type of discipline to write books, but
it's not fun.
There's work behind it. Yeah. So, and I now do my science outreach mostly through the Moorhead Planetarium, which is here. It's a great science center. It's Moorhead Planetarium and Science Center here in Chapel Hill. And a fun fact is that it's where the Apollo astronauts trained to navigate with the stars. Yeah. I knew he'd be excited about this. It's really cool.
Did not know that.
Yeah. So on one of the missions, they got a little bit turned around, and some of their training came in handy. So Apollo astronauts got some historical perspective. So I do outreach there mostly with elementary and middle school kids. So mostly between the ages of 4th grade to about 9th grade. However, once a year we do this really fun science expo, which we all get together, and it's a whole statewide event. And so there's different areas that have their own kind of science fairs, but different scientists across all disciplines come out into the main areas of UNC's campus and have these tabletop demonstrations. Now we each have our own, and it's based off of usually what we do for our own research. So, my level. So, I think what one of the differences with our stuff is that Alex gives them the ability to play with a whole bunch of different ideas of science. You know, you're going to have some physics, you're going to have chemistry, maybe biology. He's got this cool tabletop microscope that I also ordered because of his video. And
it seems like after I did it, everyone thought it was the cool thing to do, and I'm seeing it everywhere now.
Who else? Somebody else did it.
I did it first.
I know, someone did it, and I was like, oh, you got that from Alex.
Well, actually, my idea came from couch microscopy. Ooh. So she has a different one where it's actually a little attachment on the back of her phone, and I got the one that we got because it was the cheaper one. But I mean, like, she inspired it, so I was like, I need that for this, and then I got it. But yeah, now it seems like everyone got one. So.
Yeah. So you've said something before, and we haven't really talked about it too much, but what is science engagement?
I used to totally identify as a science communicator. Then I started doing the videos and the Sidewalk Science Center. And I'm like, what if I'm not a science communicator? What if I'm a science engager? Like, is there a distinction between those two? How do you define each? And which is more important? And I've kind of written a few recent posts about what I think is more important. But science communication, to me, I'm just going to put this in a personal perspective, is being able to translate complex concepts for a general audience. And I think the biggest thing is, where is that general audience coming from? Who is actually seeing that material? Mm. And we get a lot of tertiary sources, like in the news media. Magazines write about science all the time and completely blow that proportion. And it's just like, stop, please, that's not what this is. So it's, my big thing is, science communication is so important. We need to be able to break down complex concepts. But even more important in my eyes is creating an audience that doesn't exist yet. And that's where the science engagement comes from. Mm-hmm. If my table, it wasn't in that park, there would be 1,000+ people who never saw science that day, who never engaged with these different concepts.
That's true.
And I know, like, one of them, their grandfather bought them a microscope. I actually saw them where I work because I came to my job, and said, "Oh yeah, he bought our daughter the microscope for her birthday."
That's
because.
So cool.
She saw it there. What would have happened had they not seen it there? She wouldn't have gotten this microscope, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, so, there's all these little things. Well, I think it's a really good point, too, of trying to reach out to audiences that wouldn't get it normally, because that's one of the biggest issues, I think, with some of the social media stuff, that you're kind of preaching to the choir. You've got
The people
whole
who are
audience.
already engaged are the people you're translating for. So
Yeah, with future audience program. That's a great idea. But I would say, yeah, I think the term science communicator, it's definitely contentious. I would say though, I think of like my favorite science communicators, and like the first few things that came up are, the first thing was Bill Nye, who is not a trained scientist. The second is Neil deGrasse Tyson, who is absolutely a trained scientist. And the third is Mythbusters. Because it's so interesting. I always use Mythbusters as the example, and people are like, that's not science communication. Like, they think Bill Nye, but they don't think Mythbusters. But if you look at Mythbusters, they are doing the science. You know, they're doing the science live, and they're real experiments. And I think that's the kind of level that people would watch Mythbusters who would never identify as even liking science, right? Like, everyone knew someone who was like, oh yeah, you saw the thing about the penny dropping off a building and it could kill someone except for wind resistance. And you're like, you just talked about a physics concept. That's interesting though. I think science engagement, definitely, maybe there's like some overlap, maybe there's, I don't know, it's a whole field, huh?
And yeah, there's definitely some overlap, because as you're moving through each of these demonstrations, you're explaining the concepts that make each of them work. And especially when most of that audience is kids, it's like, how do I say this that a 5-year-old can understand? And you know, even if the parents already understand it, it's like, it also helps the other kids with the family if there's more kids. So like, there's the Magnus effect flying cups, and that one you can break it down to like 3 different ways to explain it, because all it is rotation, air friction, and air pressure. And so you say, you know, as the cup is spinning, it has this friction going around it, which is dragging the air underneath, which creates high pressure underneath of it and lifts the cup into the air. So you get to explore these concepts, these individual concepts that everyone knows, but when you connect them together, here's what they do.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and what's interesting is that now there's a whole bunch of research on how to best do science communication. I don't know if you can hear, but my dogs are snoring very loudly. So there's this whole research about science communication and what works, and education science as well, which is really interesting. And I'm actually trained to train other people to be science communicators. So I am one of the people who, I volunteer at the Moorhead Planetarium. Now I do less of my own outreach, and now I help other people turn their science into outreach material. So I'm working more with the scientists who, if anyone has had an experience with a scientist and it hasn't gone well, one, I'm sorry for that, because I think scientists owe the public to be able to talk about their research with the public, because the public is paying us as scientists. But it's also like, we all have our strengths and weaknesses. We all have those things that we don't really work on. And for scientists, a lot of times it's talking to these different levels that you're talking about, you know.
Yeah, I actually recently saw a quote. Well, actually, there are a couple things here. Months ago, back in April, so April 24th, an article came out in Ars Technica, and the title of this article, I'm going to probably miss a word or two, but it's interest in science, not ability, is how people engage with it most. Like, it increases their trust. So interest in science, not ability, increases trust in science. Or I think it was actually more specific to climate change. So, you know, like, if you're interested and you're actively reaching out for it, you don't have to be able to like crunch the numbers or like know exactly how to perform a test. You just have to be engaged with it enough that you can help spread the message and be able to like kind of practice little things on your own, and that helps build the trust.
Cool. We just got a really good question. So we got a question of, these live streams are watched very many people at a time. So you probably noticed there's like 7 people watching. That makes sense. It's a Saturday morning.
We got to 11, I saw at one point.
Yeah, we got to 11. Ooh. But at the end, we will be able to see how many people watched throughout the entire time. And exciting news is that the SciCommunity has its own YouTube channel. It's called NEXUS. And so you can look up NEXUS, the SciCommunity on YouTube. Or, even easier, when we're done with this video, you can go to the SciCommunity page. And I'll just encourage you to go do that now. Just drop out of here, go to the SciCommunity page, click on the YouTube link.
Go on, scram.
Go away. The link in our bio is to that YouTube channel. And so you can subscribe there. We are talking live here, but we have a secret other camera that we are talking to.
Right now, that link actually goes to the SciCommunity pins, not the YouTube page, because we need to raise funds.
Oh, okay. Go to the pins, but look this up.
It's $11. Push it in.
Are we almost to the funding point?
3 weeks. We were, I think, just over $100 away yesterday, and I got my pin yesterday, so you should get yours too.
Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah, so definitely go there, help us with pins, but go to YouTube, find the SciCommunity Nexus.
NEXUS, that's all you really have to type in.
Yeah. Well, no, it's not. If you type in Nexus, because it's a phone. That was bad. That was bad. But I don't know. I have opinions. I always have opinions. That's the other segue. That's the other big thing. So you want to be excited about science, and it's also, in my opinion, it's okay to have opinions. Yeah, I know.
Opinions.
I know, right? Everyone's shocked.
My opinion is better than your science. Thank you.
Well, yeah. So this is the thing, though, is that I think this was a really interesting discussion that I had at a science communication workshop, where it was like, well, shouldn't science be objective? And like, absolutely, that is what we're shooting for. That opinions aren't getting in the way. But truthfully, science is done by scientists who are human, and they have opinions. And what I want to study is inherently biased by what I'm interested in, which is based on all of my background, based on my teaching, based on a lot of different things about me. And so just that, my science, the science I do, is already biased by what I want to do. There's so many opinions that are in the middle of science, and then how I interpret that data is based on what I've learned in the past, what books I've read, other things like that, and what kind of communication I have with others. So as a scientist, my responsibility is to try to be as objective as possible, but also accept that I have opinions and I need to account for those, if anything.
That's definitely, the confirmation bias kind of stuff is definitely a big issue in science. Especially, climate change is obviously the big one we're going to talk about, but a lot of people take issue with confirmation bias in climate change, especially who has the agenda, who doesn't have the agenda.
So confirmation bias meaning?
What you want to happen is what you're most likely to try to make happen.
Yeah. So a great simple example of this is that if you show people a set of patterns, or a set of blocks and things, and tell them that there's a pattern, they will find one. They'll be like, yes, that is definitely patterned, and it could be completely random, and we look for the things that we expect to see. And so as scientists, our job is to try to do the opposite, is try to say, I think this, and so let's see if I can prove myself wrong. That's the only thing you can do in science, is make it falsifiable. However,
I just had...
So brain blast.
At my sidewalk science center, sometimes I do get people who come up and they're like, they're taking this from a very different point of view, even though I'm not trying to push any agendas. I'm just like, I just want people to engage with it. But then you have a few people who are like, it's something more, isn't it? And then I got into a discussion with someone, I'll call it a discussion because on my end it was a discussion, who he was definitely trying to say, like, things can be proved and we can do this to prove something. But I'm like, actually science can't prove anything, it can only disprove, because it just takes one test, and obviously you have to verify things, peer review, repeat as many times as possible to either narrow it down to what it is, but one test can completely disprove something.
Yeah. So. Well, and exactly, and I do think that there's something to be said, like if you meet a scientist who said that they have proved something, that's not true.
No.
That's not true science. And if a scientist tells you that they are not biased, you should not believe a word they say. Because every single person is biased. They can say that the science is not biased. They can say that, the process of science is not biased, and it ideally should not be biased, but every person you talk to has their own interpretation of the data. And that is why I think science's community is amazing, because we all look at the same data, and you can give the same data to a bunch of scientists and they all draw different conclusions. Are they lying? No. Is the science bad? No. It's just how we do science, and we all have these different viewpoints, and actually in the end that makes it better, because two people might see a completely different takeaway from the same data, and we might learn a lot from both sides. Cool. So what we're talking about is just science communication, what that means to us, what we want to do with it, and one of the things that we wanted to bring up here was, what is the future of our science communication?
That actually makes sense now that you think of it.
Yeah, we're good. So we've got some exciting plans for the future. Alex keeps hinting at this cool thing, which I'm going to learn more about today. He wouldn't even tell me before this because he knew I would just like leak everywhere, be like, there's a thing, you guys. So for me, my future of science communication is that I've got about a year to a year and a half of grad school left. In the meantime, I'm going to still be doing the conferences, going to show all of you what I do in the lab on a day-to-day basis, talk about my science. I do that on Instagram mainly because I'm there anyway and I like it. So you can follow me at Susanna L. Harris, and I'm in the links and stuff. But for now, I'm just going to keep working as a scientist. After that, I would like to continue on in science communication, probably for a business. I would love to keep doing what I do now of helping scientists do outreach on their own science, but on kind of an industrial scale level. So work for a company of how did their research and development, how does that team actually interface with the business and the marketing team, and how do we make sure that companies are marketing their real science in a way that's understandable, but also true. So that's my future of SciComm. I hope that's what I'm aiming for. And then in the meantime, while you're working on all this other stuff, you're still writing, right?
Oh yeah, no. So I'm working currently.
He doesn't sleep, everyone. He is a vampire.
Right now I'm pulling somewhere in the order of 90-hour weeks, but that just increased because now I'm writing, so it's going to closer to 100. But this is the 7th book that I've written in the past just over 14 years. Hopefully, no, I'm publishing it. Planned date is October 17th, 2020.
Wow, you're so planned. Wait. 2020?
2020.
Yeah, Patrick just said, but also true, meaning talking about what I was saying with the communication between like industry and marketing and stuff like that. An explicit qualification. Yeah, exactly. That it's kind of sketch that I have to say, like I want to do science communication that is understandable and true. One, there's the company aspect of this, that they don't want to give away everything. A lot of companies are being kind of highlighted right now because they haven't been fully honest with their consumer base. And as people get better at internet access and things like that, it's so much easier for us as consumers to just look things up and put two and two together and say, I'm not sure that makes sense. And so companies need to start holding themselves to that higher standard. On the flip side, a lot of the reason that I get pushback from scientists when I'm trying to train them, though they will come to me to this training program to learn to be a science communicator. And almost always the thing they say is, oh, I'd love to do science communication, but I can't talk about my own research because it's way too complicated. And I'm like, we talked about Katie Mack earlier. If Katie Mack can talk about black holes, you can talk about your science in a way that other people can understand. That is, in my opinion, absolute nonsense. You're just not trying hard enough, or you don't have the right resources. When I go to my car mechanic and I come in and I say, this light is on, what's going on? And they go in and they do a detailed look at it. I'm gonna have to do this soon. Tuesday. It's been a week, y'all. When I bring it in there, I want them to be able to say, I know nothing about cars, so one of the pistons isn't firing correctly, it's not moving correctly, and so we need to replace that. And I should be able to ask, okay, why, or what does that do? And they should say, it's going to have those explosions that are going to power the car. Now, I say that and it sounds very simple and true. If I was a scientist, that was my whole job, a scientist might say, Well, I can't really explain this unless I explain all the background of combustion, and I have to tell you the history of how automobiles were designed. And actually, I should compare and contrast it with all other piston structures and make sure that you understand the differences between the different materials making up pistons. I think that's what scientists get into, is instead of just bringing it down to a conversational level that's still true, it's still my piston that needs some work, we have this desire to tell every single fact that we possibly know, to a point where people don't want to listen, and it's, yeah, I think you can think about it that way, of like...
The overabundance of information, like, I mean, that's something I used to struggle, well, I probably still struggle with at some point, but when you just say everything that you can possibly say about something, and you just lose the person because you can put it all together, a piece in your head, but they probably can't. So just take the big pictures and line them up.
Yeah. Yeah, and if, I mean, I do think, dude, Hermes, come here, come here. Somebody's not getting enough attention. Yeah. Oh, he's over it. He's so over it. Oh. Okay. He's Herman. Oh, here we go. I think if more people understand science, it would be a much better world. I totally agree. I think that that's the thing. Oh.
This kind of actually goes back to what I was saying. I'll take this.
Yeah.
So, like that article that I sort of started, it's not that maybe people need to understand science, but that they need to be interested in it. Like, if you're not interested, you're going to find a way to refute it, even if you're not correct in what you're saying to counter it. Mm-hmm. You just need to be able to be, like, not practice it, but like be interested in it, look for it, engage with it on your own a little bit, and along the way, I mean, you'll help yourself to understand it, but you don't need the ability. You just need to the cooperability with it. Do you have
any tips for people who want to get started in science communication?
Write a blog post. Take something that you like about science and just kind of try to break it down. Like, explain it how you would explain it to somebody, and then read it, go through it, share it around, and just see what you can bring different topics, see what you can talk about, and if people are following along. And I mean, that's kind of how I got started. I sort of had a website where that's what I was doing. I was taking different topics, I was breaking them down, just kind of publishing and pushing it onto the world. And now I make videos, I do this table and stuff. And I mean, it's working out. So.
Yeah, I think so many people are afraid to do their own. Yeah, I think that's true. We got a comment of many people are afraid because of their own beliefs. I think that's definitely true. I love dogs. I totally agree with Alex of just like getting out and trying it. Just start. I love the idea of a blog post. Learn to take criticism, because that's what's going to make you the best. And also, everyone has a different opinion. Like, Alex and I have talked about this already, but we do science communication differently. And sometimes some of the stuff that you do, I'm like, I don't think that works. And you probably say the same about me if you saw my stuff. And getting that feedback can be really helpful, because truthfully, we learn differently too. And so having different perspectives from different people will help me to talk to more people, where I'm very used to talking to people who learn the way I do, but not people who learn in different ways. And so you can always be better. There will always be critics, but yeah, just know that you're doing the right thing by just getting out and trying, and just that is what is really important.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an introvert. Susanna's an introvert. Like, I'm engaging with hundreds of people a weekend on a street, and I'm an introvert. So like, that was a huge leap for me. Like, it's one thing to sit there and talk to individual people about science and have them answer a couple questions for a camera. It's another thing to get people to come to you, do a bunch of different experiments, and hundreds of people a weekend. Like, that's not something easily done. So, and by yourself. Like, I'm usually by myself. I've had Chemical Reaction, Sean Jackowitz. He came out with me a couple times. I haven't posted it yet, but he made like a little promo video, and he's still making a couple more, just kind of test them out. So
well, that relates to the question that Patrick sent us of who would we like to collaborate with.
Yeah. Okay.
So do you have any people that you would love to collaborate with?
I am trying to get around the country actually.
Ooh.
So I know where Sean and also Abigail. Don't know what's her last name.
Courtney.
Courtney. So Abigail, they're both in Athens, Georgia, and so Sean is from Savannah, but he just went back to college. So like, if I could get up to Athens and collaborate with them, I am trying to get out to LA sometime within the next year, hopefully sooner than later, to meet everyone out there because there's so many SciCommunity members out there. Denver, Colorado is another place I'm trying to hook up with. Portland, I love Portland. I went to see the eclipse last year. I was in Salem, but I also went to Portland. So I know Corelli is up there, and Patrick, you actually interviewed her a few weeks ago. Would love to meet her too. And so.
I still think the SciCommunity needs to do a meetup, is my not humble opinion. That not because anything good would necessarily come of it. I think there would be good to come of it, but the reason that I want to do it is it's been so cool to have Alex here and get to see life behind Instagram. I'm a little hungover, all 7 of you watching, but it's been so fun, and I would love a chance to meet all the people who I interact with on Instagram, because everyone here, it seems like a really cool community, and I think that in person it would be just as fun, if not more so. Yeah, so I'll put out another shout out. If you're ever in Chapel Hill or the Triangle, come.
Or Savannah.
Yeah, come hit us up and we can do some SciComm, we can just go have some delicious food and hang out with dogs. People are saying thank you. Cool. Yeah, and if anyone wants to help either of us with any of our projects, we love collaborators. Well, I do.
And I'm going to need fundraising help very soon. So, if anybody, if you've seen any of my work or you check it out or something, this is something I'm trying to make a communal effort towards what is hopefully about to happen. So, if you get in touch, we can talk about how I have a bunch of different ways that you can actually donate.
It's such a cliffhanger, Alex.
So, there's a lot of things that you've said in this, and I'm plans. Oh, yeah, that's plan 2. Oh man, that's plan 2.
I'm starting to understand how far out in advance you plan, and I'm very impressed. It's pretty. You're book in 2020, this thing in 2045. I'm whoa. So not sure what I'm doing next week.
Yes, the book is in 2020, but Dan and I have something else planned for 2020, and we haven't planned it yet. It's in the talks. You'll find out about it soon.
Oh my goodness! All right, well, we're gonna leave you now so I can start getting this information out of Alex. But yeah, if you have any more questions about SciComm, if you want us to start doing different things, if you're watching these videos and you're you would be better if you did X, Y, and Z, send us a message. Again, my handle is Susanna, 2 N's, the letter L, Harris. So Susanna L. Harris. And yours?
The Scalix. So the SC Alex .of.science.
Awesome. And you can find us in the SciCommunity. Again, if you haven't, go over to YouTube, type in SciCommunity NEXUS and find our YouTube channel and subscribe there. We'll have edited versions of this video if you didn't see the whole thing. We'll have more of my dogs. There's Fresh Press Science. There's some really cool stuff coming from Patrick and Kayleen.
And I will be having my series of videos coming up soon. This will probably be the very first one on September 12th.
Yes, and like we just said, invite live stream viewers for questions. Definitely it would be fun to invite people on to chat with us in the questions. That would be really cool. You can always type it in the text, but it would be fun to actually get to talk to more of you. So thank you so much. I hope you all have an awesome weekend. We are going to have a blast here in Chapel Hill. And my dogs are obsessed with Alex.
Yeah.
So bye everybody.
Cool. See ya.